What up, y'all? We're here for a special late night edition of the Carpenters Apprentice. Miss, could you tell us your name and the name of the company?
I go by Jagwired Art, and most people call me Jag.
Did you say Jaguar?
Jagwired.
Do you think that's your spirit animal?
Yes, actually. I used to have that a recurring dream about a big cat when I was younger, and I found out later on that it was a jaguar, and that it's been my animal spirit all this time.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So whenever you decided to come out here with your art, how do you decide what you're going to do?
As far as setup, or as far as like what I paint?
I meant the painting.
As far as the painting, it just depends on the piece. Some of the pieces have like a series or part of a series. Like these particular pieces here, both of them were part of a goddess series that I worked on for 3.5 years, studying different cultures, different goddesses from different cultures, the symbolism, all of that in 3.5 years. And that was a 20-piece series. And the other pieces are just things that I've learned along the way, symbology that I've kept from that goddess series, and then things that I've learned myself. A lot of it has to do with connecting with others, connecting with myself, and connecting with nature.
And speaking of goddesses, are you a big fan of like female empowerment?
Yes, actually I am. But I'm also about equal empowerment. Like one cannot do without the other. And it's very important to know that.
You know, I agree with that too. And for those reasons, we're going to empower a woman to continue this interview.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to a special late night edition of the Carpenter's Apprentice. I'm here with my new artist friend, and I'm going to ask her a few more questions before we have to wrap things up here at Dab CBD Hemp Cafe's grand opening. So the question that I had for her was, when you start these paintings, do you have a concept in mind beforehand, or do you kind of just go with the flow as you're painting? So.
It really depends on the piece. Like the Goddess series, I had an ideal in my head, but most of the pieces are just stream of consciousness. So there's not really a set boundary of which I'm painting. So there'll be something like I'll be going for a walk in the park, and I see like something in the tree, like the tree bark, and I'm like, oh, I can add that to my piece, or there's something in it that I see that I incorporate. I did this for this piece over here, a lot of the black background pieces. That was inspired by a float session that I had done at Float SA. It's on Fredericksburg. It's basically a deprivation tank. You float in darkness. And I was able to see all these imagery that really inspired this series of work. And so it was just really exploring color within darkness.
So how do you choose what colors will go well together? Like, how do you know? Is it just a feeling, or do you study that?
So when I first started doing art, I worked in black and white. So it was pen and ink drawings. As I started exploring color, I wanted to explore how far I could push color. And now I've gotten to the point where I don't even think about the color anymore. I just throw the color on there because I use only a set amount of colors, and that has really helped me execute what I want to do.
Yeah. Okay, so you have your own style now.
Yeah.
Speaking of style and learning, so are you like a professionally trained artist, or is this something that you just kind of figured out?
So I'm a self-taught artist. I had done art in high school, but I was kicked out of art class, which is a funny thing.
Well, let's hear that story first of all. That's what we want to hear.
My art teacher at the time didn't think my art was art, and she wasn't really a very positive art teacher. Like, so specific art was art to her, other art was not art to her. And at the time I was doing a lot of illustrations for like comic books and for graphic novels and stuff like that. And I was actually, that was how my first stint into making money off of art. But she didn't see that as art and pretty much kicked me out of her class.
Wow, can you imagine that, folks? All right, so I also wanted to ask you, how many shows have you done? Is this your, I mean, are you an expert at this by now, or is this your first one?
I've done a lot of shows. I don't know how I don't know if I can count them at the top of my head. I've been doing art shows for the past maybe 8 years now. Actually it's going to be 8 years this year.
Wow, congratulations.
So, thank you. When I first started, I didn't do this particular style of art. There wasn't a niche for that. So I did a lot of fan art. And that helped me actually learn how to create art first. And then when I started to actually come in contact with other artists who were doing this type of work, I was able to expand and grow and see these visions that were in my head and transfer them to canvas or paper.
Well, we can tell you're an expert by now. She has got an awesome booth and she's got some really awesome art. Last question before we go. Oh, okay, I have it. Sorry, folks, I was drawing a blank there. Okay, so what are you going to tell people? What would you suggest for somebody who's about to do their first show? What are some pro tips that you would give them?
So the first thing for a first show, don't expect too much, because that's something that deters you from doing another show. So when you're expecting to make $100 or $200, don't expect that first go, because that's unrealistic. When I first started, I didn't make any money, because that first show is maybe $5, and that's really nothing compared to setting up and putting all your energy into it. But as you continue growing, your art has to grow before you can get that interest in your work. And as first shows, make sure you get to know the other artists that are around you, because you never know, they can help you get the next show. Or even with the advent of social media, we have such an access. Facebook especially is more local bound, and you can find art events to hop onto, talk to other artists, and they can help you get onto to other shows and to other platforms like galleries. So it's really just, when you're out there, don't expect too much the first go, because that's unrealistic it's unrealistic expectation.
I think that's the quote for the night. Don't expect too much, because this is also my first interview.